much for having me this morning. I look around and I see some familiar faces. Some of you have heard me speak before. And I was a little bit thrown at that at first, but then, you know, I understand that you have to hear a message 7 times before it even, you know, sticks with you. So unless you want me to keep saying this over and over and over again, I hope that you'll get it. And the fact that I'm here to talk about Alzheimer's and dementia, which involves memory loss, maybe you need to have me back. But again, thank you. I also want to mention how much I enjoy speaking to Rotary, and so, you know, I may keep coming back, and part of that is because of the way that we think and our values are the same. As I go through this, I'd like you to look at these values that you have here and judge my presentation. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Does it build goodwill and better friendships? And is it beneficial to all concerned? Gail, I'm glad to see you back, to see you again. I know that you've heard me speak before, and what caregivers do often involves law enforcement, so I'm glad that you're there to hear me speak again. As a caregiver support group leader, I've heard of some very important interaction between law enforcement and the caregiver. And sometimes it goes really well and sometimes it doesn't. The caregiver group that I lead in Percival, we had a situation where a woman in her 70s was taking care of her mother in her 90s. Mother got upset, ran to the neighbors and was accusing her daughter of stealing from her. So the neighbor called Adult Protective Services. And while Adult Protective Services were there, the 92-year-old mother physically attacked her 70-year-old daughter, which mandated the police come in. And the officer wasn't exactly probably up to date on what to do with these situations. And he said to the 72-year-old, "What's the matter? Can't you defend yourself against a 90-year-old? Now, this woman in her 70s who's being attacked by her 90-year-old mother said, "I'm not going to fight back against my mother. I'm not going to hit my mother." And he said to her, "Then why did you call the police?" And she said, "I didn't. The neighbor did." And, you know, 9 times out of 10, 99% of the time, law enforcement understands how to deal with these situations, but sometimes they don't. So, Kale, I'm glad you're here. Thank you for listening again. I was a caregiver, like Mike said, to my father-in-law for 7 years. He lived with us from 2002 to 2009. And since that time, I have become a caregiver advocate, and I speak to organizations and corporations about teaching people to prepare to care. Now, as I look around this room, most of you are in part of the baby boom generation. We're moving into the ages where we may develop one of these dementias. And the presentation that I do today is typically aimed at people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, so they can begin to prepare to care for someone with one of these devastating diseases. The Alzheimer's organization tells us that 1 in 3 seniors will die with some form of dementia. And they expect those numbers to double in the next 10 years. And part of that is because there are so many of the baby boomer generation who are moving into that age group. But there's also a lot of early onset dementia that we're seeing, and that's affecting people as young as 40 and 50. I believe that it's environmental in nature, but we really don't know. But the fact of the matter is there's a tsunami of dementias that's coming across the world, not just in the United States. And it's impacting almost every family that I run across. Anybody here have a family member or know somebody who does with some form of dementia? Yes, absolutely. And I think of 1 in 3 seniors will die with some form of dementia. I'm a mother of 4. They're all adults. They're married. They have spouses. So I look at one of my children, my youngest daughter, Kelly, who's 41 years old. She's got 2 parents. Her husband's got 2 parents. That's 4 of us. One of us, statistically, will develop one of these diseases. So I think it's important that my adult children know what they need to do now to take care of me then. So I'm going to go over some of these things. You may have heard them before, but please pay attention because this is so important. And one of the things you need to know, first of all, is it normal aging or is it something worse? Because as we get older, and I'm 68 years old, sometimes, you know, you begin to slow down physically, you begin to slow down mentally. I can be talking to you, and right in the middle of the sentence, the word that I was going to say blanks out, and I can't think of what it was. I can almost visualize it, but I can't think of the word. Does that happen to anybody? It's a normal part of aging. That's not something that you need to be concerned about. However, if you pick up your fork to eat your lunch, and you look at that and you don't know what that is, and you stare at it for a few minutes and you start combing your hair with it, that's something to be concerned about. And it can be my wonderful husband sitting over here. He makes great omelets. He makes wonderful pancakes. I mean, he has a system to making pancakes. You know, sometimes I'll come down and he'll have the bowl and the mixer and the beaters and the pancake mix and either the nuts or the blueberries that he's going to put in there. And he has 2 special pans that he uses. And he makes the most perfect looking pancakes. And they're fluffy and they are absolutely perfect. Now, if I come down and he's kind of rummaging through the whatnot drawer trying to find the beaters and he can't figure out what to call them, that's okay. But if all of a sudden he can't remember how to make those perfect pancakes, I'm going to be concerned. Those are the kind of the differences that you're going to want to consider. And I hope you will take this back to your children and the company and encourage the companies that they work for to listen to this at least one time, and maybe twice like you guys are, to get through to them. That it's important to watch for these things. Say, for instance, Mom was always perfectly dressed, her hair was always wonderful. You know, people would comment on how she presented herself, and all of a sudden you go to a house and she's got, her clothes aren't clean, her hair's a mess. These are the things that you want to be concerned about. Mom could be, you know, very shy and retiring, wouldn't say a swear word to save her life, and all of a sudden she's cursing like a drunken sailor. That's something that you want to be concerned about. This is my granddaughter, Lily. Isn't she sweet? Well, sometimes she's not. Sometimes she's throwing a temper tantrum. Sometimes she's taking off her clothes and running through the house. She doesn't sleep through the night. If she's mad at me, she might hit me. She doesn't care about my things. If it's something that she wants, she might pick it up and throw it on the floor and break it. We understand that Lily, at 18 months old, this is something that we expect may happen, and we know how to deal with it, or we don't know how to deal with it. We go and have a glass of wine. But it's a normal part of her process, and we know that she's going to learn how to behave, and she's going to learn to control her bladder and bowel, and she's not going to take off her underwear and throw it at you as she's growing up. But consider this sweet couple here, and consider they're doing the same thing. They never sleep through the night. They don't care at all about your possessions. They'll pick things up, they'll break them, they'll hide them, and you'll never find them. Your father, who you looked up to and respected all of your life, is all of a sudden peeing willy-nilly all over the house. If he throws a tantrum, and if he's mad at you, and he swings at you, it's a whole lot different than when Sweet Lily does that. But these are things that people with dementia do. Cognitively, They have lost the ability to reason and see what's wrong with this. They may not know where they are. They may not know who you are. Somebody with dementia can literally go back in time. Time travel is possible for someone with dementia. One of the hardest things for people to deal with when they have a parent or a spouse who has Alzheimer's or dementia is when they look at you and say, "Who are you? What are you doing in my house? I don't know you." Imagine your mother doesn't know you. Your father sees you as a stranger invading his home. These are devastating things that I see and hear from caregivers all the time. It's heartbreaking. But the reason they don't recognize you is because these devastating brain diseases have taken away not just their short-term memory, but years of memories, and they are now 20, 30, 40 years back in time. And that's one of the things that I advise people to do. If your parent doesn't recognize you, ask them how old they are. Because they might be 30, and you might be a toddler. And the reason they don't recognize you is because they still believe that you're a child. So I said to my daughter, if this happens to me, if I look at you and I don't know who you are, what I'd like you to do is smile, introduce yourself, and tell me about your mother. And she said, it's not going to happen to you, but I'll share that with other people. Well, I hope it doesn't happen to me. And I talked to Mike recently about the fact that I was married before Mike. My first husband has passed away. He wasn't a very nice person. He was an alcoholic. It scares me because I know so much about these diseases. What will happen if I get dementia and I go back in time and he's not my husband anymore? That other guy is. Not only what will it do to me, what will it do to him? Now hopefully, since we talked about it, he'll have some degree of understanding, but I can't imagine it wouldn't be devastating. But he would know, because I preach about this all the time, that's the reason behind it. I've gone back in time. And I talk to professional caregivers, also people who work in care facilities in these wonderful memory care homes that are popping up all over the country because this issue is becoming so big. And they deal with it every single day, and they understand what to do until it's their family member. And then they start having the same doubts and the same guilt and the same, what the heck is happening here? And a lot of that is because of expectations. We expect Sweet Lily to behave the way that she does. But our expectations of our parents or our spouse, we knew them before these diseases hit them, is that they will behave in a very different way than they're behaving now. And our expectations of them are so different. And also when you're dealing with somebody with Alzheimer's and dementia, they pop in and out of reality. So very often it seems like when things are going bad, they're doing it on purpose. I hear this all the time. Oh my God. Keep telling them the same thing over again. I know darn well he's doing it on purpose. He's not. He's not. And people ask, what's the difference between dementia and Alzheimer's? And I want to make this clear. Dementia is an overall term for cognitive impairment that impedes normal daily living. That's all dementia means. Alzheimer's is the most prevalent form of dementia. It's the one that we hear all the time, but there are several. There's Lewy body dementia, which Robin Williams died from, and it has a Parkinson's component, and it involves a lot of hallucinations. There is vascular dementia that's usually caused by a stroke. My daughter-in-law's mother had a brain aneurysm, and that caused her dementia, and she's now in a care facility. One of those, 1 in 3. We've already seen that in our family. There's Pick's disease. There's Parkinson's disease is now considered a form of dementia. There's frontal lobe disease. There's traumatic brain injury. There are so many things that can cause these diseases to happen, and they have devastating effects on families, entire families. So, if you know this is coming, and it will affect you, I promise you, it's going to affect you in some way. Maybe not you, maybe not your spouse, maybe one of your children, maybe your brothers and sisters, maybe your neighbor, maybe your best friend, but it's going to affect you. If it hasn't already, it's going to. Unless we can figure out what's causing these diseases and find a way to treat them. I just saw on television last night that Pfizer is abandoning their research into medications for dementia because all of the money and time they put into it, they've not been able to come up with anything that works. That scares the heck out of me, and it should scare the heck out of the rest of you also. So, what do you do now? You talk with your children. Let them know that this is a serious possibility that is going to affect the family. And one of the things you want to do, if you do have children, is figure out who's going to do what. I have 4. 2, only one of them lives close by. My one son is already dealing with it with his mother-in-law. So, and each one of them have different personalities, different skills. One is very organized. So I want to decide who's going to be the primary caregiver, and I want to make arrangements to let people know that now. Because one of my daughters said jokingly, and I hope it was jokingly, you better be nice to me because one of these days I'm going to be taking care of you. And maybe that's not the right person to do. But she might be able to, talk to doctors, or she might be able to do some cooking, or she might be able to come and sit with me so the primary caregiver can get a break. But you can't do this by yourself. If you try to do this by yourself, you're going to become completely overwhelmed. When my father-in-law came into our home, we had talked about having one of our parents come and stay with us. We had planned, we thought we knew what we were doing, had no idea how long it was going to take, how severe it was going to get, or the impact that it was going to have on us. Mike and I have been married for 31 years. We absolutely adore each other, and we like each other. We like to spend time together, which is great because he retired a year ago, and we still like each other. But we fought more during that time than we ever had before or after, simply because the stress was so great. You do not want to try and deal with this on your own. You need to put a care team in place, and you need to do it now. And you have to talk to your parents or your spouse or whoever it might be about what they would like to happen. You want to get things like power of attorney in place before they can't make that decision anymore. I hear this all the time. I've got my mother in here, she's got stage 4 dementia. How do I get a power of attorney? Well, she has to sign consent for that. And if she's deep in dementia, she can't do that. And it's not a panacea for all of the problems. I had somebody in the caregiver support group that I deal with say, and it was the same 70, 92-year-old. The only asset we have, she lived with her mom, was this house in mom's name. I have power of attorney. Can I put that house in my name instead? No, you can't. Power of attorney says you're acting on behalf of that person. Taking her home and put it in your name is not working in her behalf. You can't do that. after she has dementia. But you know what she can do? She can pull that power of attorney and say, I don't want you taking care of me anymore. So there's legal things that you need to deal with as well. There's legal things that you need to do. And you need to take care of that now. Have these discussions now. If you haven't, you need to. And then there comes the, is you going to care for the person at home? Or is the person going to go into a care facility? The thing is, no matter what you decide now, it may change. A lot of people will say, I don't want to be a burden to my kids, just put me in a home. Until the time comes when you have dementia and you have one of these devastating brain diseases, and you're crying and you're begging and you're saying, please don't, please don't. I don't want to go. You have changed your mind and your children are going to be guilt-free. I always tell people, if you haven't made a promise to your parent or spouse, or whoever it may be, I will never put you in a care facility, Mom. I'm going to take care of you. I love you. I'm going to keep you at home. I promise. And then comes the day when Mom is so out of control that she's dangerous. Sometimes people with dementia, they don't recognize you. They think you've broken into their house, and they're going to pick up a cane or a knife, and they're going to come after you. You're not going to be able to sleep at night because it's not safe. So even though you've made this promise, the person is going to have to be removed from the home, and you're going to be devastated. So what do? I ask you to do this, to remember when you made that promise, I'll never put you in a nursing home. I won't do that. That what you were saying to that person is, I'm going to make sure that you get the best possible care. That's what's behind that promise. And sometimes it's not going to be caring for that person at home. Sometimes it's going to be to remove them from the home. And sometimes they do so much better. There's a couple in my support group, both of his parents had the form of dementia, both of them. Different forms, but they both have it. And they discovered that there was something seriously wrong when they went over to visit, and they had taken good old duct tape, Mike's favorite things, and sealed up the drapes and the curtains in their house so nobody could possibly see in, because they hear these noises outside of the house and felt that they were in danger. They absolutely did not want to go into a care facility. They didn't trust other people. They didn't want to have anything to do with it, but there was no way that they could stay at home. They were isolated in their homes. Once they got into the care facility, they felt safe. And they're interacting with people, and they're having dinner in the community room, and they're playing games. So sometimes it makes a big difference not to have them at home. So you have to keep these possibilities in mind. The biggest thing I can tell you now is prepare, talk to people, talk to lawyers, talk to doctors, talk to your families, and figure out and put a plan in place now. You know, some of us plan our funerals while we're still here, because we don't want our families to have to deal with those issues at the time. Now, in today's world, it simply makes sense. What is going to happen if the time comes when I have one of these devastating brain diseases? And get those plans in place as quickly as you can. Talk to your kids about it. And it's possible that you're going to end up caring for one of your children if they get one of these early onsets. So have these family discussions. It's critical. Okay, what do I do then? If you're dealing with somebody with one of these diseases, you have to know how to respond to them. Go back to, what if I don't recognize my daughter? Well, I've had that talk with her. If this happens to me, smile, introduce yourself, and tell me about your mother. Will she remember that? I hope. I hope. But there are so many other things that can happen. A person with Alzheimer's dementia may refuse to change their clothes, not for days, but for weeks. And part of that is because they don't understand that they need to change their clothes, or they think they've already changed their clothes. In their memory, they just put clean clothes on and they look down and they don't see anything wrong. Well, these are brain diseases. It's not just a memory problem. Your brain controls everything. It controls sight, it controls hearing, it controls speech, it controls balance, it controls reasoning, and it controls perception. So if you're telling me to take off my clothes, and I know that I look perfectly fine and my clothes are clean, then what are you doing? Why do you want me naked all of a sudden? And no, I'm not taking my clothes off and you can't make me. What are you going to do? Can you handle a situation like that with your loved one? What are you going to do? They begin to smell bad because they don't want to take a bath or a shower. Why? I just took a shower. What's the matter with you? That could be why. It could be when I go into the bathroom, there's this great big mirror there, and when I look, there's an old lady in there. And I don't know who she is because I'm 25 now. And I'm not going in that room when that scary old lady is. What are you going to do? Can you handle that? Why? You're taking me into this small room and making me take my clothes off, and you're putting me under this contraption, and all of a sudden something's hitting me all over my body. And no, I'm not going in there. You can't make me. And the thing is, people with dementia can't see the water. They don't know what it is. All they know is something's hitting them all over their body. And I don't want any part of that. So what do? Can you handle that? That's all part of the decision making. The reason that there are so many reasons, why somebody might not want to change their clothes. Suppose you tell me I have to put clean clothes on, and I'm cognizant enough that I go to this little space in my house, and I open this door, and there's things, different colors, different sizes, swaying in front of me. And I reach and I touch something, and it moves even more, and I don't know what it is. I'm not going to want to go over there and change my clothes. There's so much of it about perception. Think about changing your adult spouse, child, parent diaper. Can you handle that? These are things that you need to think about and behaviors that you need to consider. Can you handle those? And perception is everything. And none of us have all the answers. I call what I did for 7 years creative problem solving on the run. Because I never knew, not only from day to day what was going to happen, but sometimes from moment to moment. And what I tried yesterday worked fine, but it doesn't work today. What the heck am I going to do now? And I wish I had known then what I know now, because Roger passed in 2009, and it changed my life. Knowing how difficult it was, and knowing how unprepared I was, how difficult it was, how much I loved him, and what a gift it was to me, is why I do what I do now. And I learn every single day, and I go to caregiver conferences, and I talk to people on caregiver websites, and I learn, and I know if I were to do it again, and I would do it again in a minute, I would not make the same mistake. But I would make different ones. Because there's no way to do it right, and that's why I'm the imperfect caregiver. And if you happen to pick up that book, and you happen to read it, you will see how imperfect I was. And Mike was a little bit imperfect too. And I embrace that, and I let other people know. And sometimes when people read the book, they say, oh, thank God, I thought I was the only one. I was the only one who lost my temper. I was the only one who wanted it to stop, who had the terrible thought, please die, and get it over. I'm out of time. Okay. This presentation can take anywhere from an hour to 2 hours. I appreciate the fact that you letting me talk this morning. There are places you can go for help. You can go to caregiver conferences. You can go to caregiver support groups. You can always call me. Please. If you want me to come back 5 or 6 more times, I will do that too. Thank you so much. Thank you.